Okay, today I am covering a section in chapter 1 called Wholeness and Spirit. So, the very first paragraph in this section is very powerful. It's telling us that we did not create ourselves and that our ability to create comes from Source or from God, and that we cannot destroy who and what we really are. We can only ignore it or paralyze it or distort it or delay it. That's all we can really do with our true abilities that God gave to us. The first sentence in that section, in that first paragraph, says, "The miracle is much like the body in that both are learning aids for facilitating a state in which they become unnecessary." Okay? This is why miracles are temporary. This is why bodies are temporary. This is why life appears to be temporary. Okay? They're all just tools for us to use while we think we're here so that we can remember that we're not really here and we can wake up to who and what we really are. That is what's going on here. And it wasn't by design, like much of spirituality tries to tell us on the spiritual buffet line, that, oh, God did this to us so that we could find ourselves. What a fun game to play. No, God would be a psychopath if God were doing that to us. That is really cruel and mean. God did not do this to us. We did this to us. We forgot who and what we really are. So miracles being temporary, bodies being temporary, the illusory world being illusory in nature, it's only here as a tool to help us wake up, to help us remember. Okay, what else does it say here? It says, when spirit's original state of direct communication is reached, neither the body nor the miracle serves any purpose. Okay, so when we wake up to truth, we no longer need the body or time or miracles or anything that appears to be within the illusory world. We don't need it anymore because we're awake and in direct communication with God, our true self in heaven, and with one another, the one child of God. When you believe you are in a body, however, you can choose between loveless and miraculous channels of expression. Okay, so that's just another way of talking about the two choices that we always have: love or fear, spirit or ego. Okay, this time it's using the words loveless, meaning ego or fear, and miraculous, meaning spirit or God. It says you can make an empty shell, but you cannot express nothing at all. You can wait, delay, paralyze yourself, or reduce your creativity to almost nothing, but you cannot abolish it. So what it's telling us is no matter how much we deny our truth, no matter how far into the illusion we fall, no matter, oh, the sun is really going to be a problem here. All right, let me move. So we can wait, delay, paralyze ourselves, or reduce our creativity to almost nothing. We can do that in our pretend illusory world, but we cannot abolish it. We cannot end who we really are. We cannot put a stop to it. It will never die, the true spirit of what we really are. And then it says at the very end of that paragraph, you cannot destroy your medium or communication, meaning with God, with heaven, with one another, with the one child of God, but not your potential. You did not create yourself. Okay? So it's saying that our potential to be pure spirit, to be one with God, to have our awareness that we are one with each other and at home in heaven with God, that is our potential. We have the potential to be that, to do that, to live in this world, but not of this world. So the potential is always there. We just need to know that it's an option for us and then choose it. That's it. We just need to choose it. Okay. The second paragraph, what's that telling us? The miracle worker therefore accepts the time control factor gladly. He recognizes that every collapse of time brings everyone closer to the ultimate release from time, in which the Son and the Father are one. Equality does not imply equality now. All right, what does all this mean? This means when it says equality does not imply equality now, it means that, hi, Mimi. Well, hello there. Hi, are you wanting to join us? It means that once we understand the truth, we accept the time control factor gladly, meaning once we understand that we have the ability to escape the ego's clutch on us, the ego's way of viewing everything, and the ego's desire to keep us trapped in illusion. Once we understand that, we gladly, we gladly accept that. We're very happy to learn that it's not real and that we can make a different choice. Okay, so when it says equality does not imply equality now, so right now in the illusion of time, you may not understand equality. You may not accept that you are equal to Christ consciousness, to the one sonship, and to God's source creation. You might not understand that equality now, but you always have the potential to understand it. That truth is always there for us when we choose to embrace it. So it says, when everyone recognizes that he has everything, individual contributions to the sonship will no longer be necessary. So once we... Sorry, I got very distracted by the pretty birds flying across the sky. So once we understand that we are not these separate fractals, these separate individuals that we think that we appear to be, the sonship will no longer be necessary because we won't need the illusion anymore. We won't need all these tools that we're using right now to wake ourselves up so that we can go home to the truth. So paragraph 3 is telling us that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in his true relationship with his Father. And it says the specialness of God's sons does not stem from exclusion, but from inclusion. All right. So later in the text, when it addresses special relationships, we'll get further into that. But here it's alluding to that and telling us that any specialness that we have is coming from our oneness with God. That's what's truly special, not any of the independent fractals that we think we are. That is a misconception by the ego. It's a distortion. So it says, all my brothers are special, meaning we're all the same. We're all special because we're all the same. We're all the one child of God. Okay, so paragraph 4 is telling us that the creation is whole, and the mark of wholeness is holiness. Miracles are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance. So again, lots of words to constantly remind us that we're one. That's all it's saying over and over and over again. We are one. All of us who appear to be here, whether we're humans, plants, animals, whether we're talking about extraterrestrials, other entities in other realms and dimensions, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything that appears to be within the universe, we are all one. We are one with one another, and we are one with God's source creation, which is just love. That's all we are. So this is what all of these words are telling us. Okay. Oh my gosh, my cat got mud on my book. I am detaching. I am forgiving. It's okay. When we accept that we are all one, that's when we understand that we are in a state of completion and abundance. So abundance in the Course isn't talking about like money and stuff and material things within our illusory world. It's talking about the abundance of God's love, of knowing that you are one with God and we are one with one another, and that all that exists is love, and that we are purely a constant extension of love. That is true abundance. When we know that, that is when we feel abundant. So paragraph 5 tells us whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Okay, so it's telling us the truth can never go away. No matter how much we try to deny it, no matter how much we try to distort it, it's never going to change. We do not have the power to do that. Spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect. But the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. So we can choose to ignore it or pay attention to it, this truth, this abundance, this oneness, this completion. When we choose it, that is when we feel good. That's when we feel at peace. That's when we feel safe. It says the only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters. So you can't choose both. You can't choose ego and spirit at the same time. You have to just choose one. So that's why the entire crux of the course is all about your choice. What are you choosing? And the good news is that you always have another moment to choose again. If it does not freely elect to do so, it retains its creative potential but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. As a result, it imprisons because such are the dictates of tyrants. All right, the ego is a tyrant. When we give our power away to the ego thought system, we have given our power away to tyrannous control. And it's saying rather than authoritative control. Okay, and that can sound really scary. That can sound threatening. Like, I don't want to be under authoritative control. Who wants that? But the way the Course is using this word, it's really about God. It's about surrendering to that. So once we aren't afraid of that anymore and we surrender to that, we can feel the gifts that come along with knowing our oneness with God. The gift that comes from surrendering to that knowing. Paragraph 6 says, the miracle is a sign that the mind has chosen to be led by me in Christ's service. The abundance of Christ is the natural result of choosing to follow him. All right, so this is, I know it can sound like this is all about Jesus, and following him, worshiping him, much the way that our world has done typically thus far. But that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about being one with Christ consciousness, knowing who and what you really are. That is what it means by choosing to follow him. The him is really us. It's our own Christ consciousness. It's our own higher perspective of truth. So that's what it means when it says to choose him and follow him. Christ consciousness. It says the illusion that shallow roots can be depended and thus made to hold is one of the distortions on which the reverse of the golden rule rests. As these false underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable. Okay, so all of these words mean that when we choose ego's interpretation, okay, those are the shallow roots, right? That we trick ourselves into thinking that they can be deepened, meaning, oh, I can make this real. I can really sink in with my ego thought system. No, you can't, is what it's saying. It's an illusion. So that's why it says it's one of the distortions, right, on which the reverse of the golden rule rests. As these false underpinnings are given up, meaning when we start to release ourselves from the ego's stronghold that it has on us, when we start to release ourselves from those false beliefs, it says when those underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable. However, nothing is less than stable than an upside down orientation, nor can anything that holds it upside down be conductive to increased stability. This is why people give up on the Course all the time. It's like, what? Okay, all that really means is that when we're trying to put our eggs in the ego basket, it fails. It's not going to work. And as egos, we keep trying to do that over and over and over again. Almost every moment of every day, we are trying to sink our roots into the ground of ego, into the ego's belief system. And every time we're doing that, this is what makes us feel unhappy. This is what makes us feel scared. This is what makes us feel fear and feel like we are being threatened by something within this illusory world. Now, when we start to give that up and we start to understand the truth, it does say that the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable. All right. I know that's disappointing news to hear. We all just want to go for the win. Our egos want to go for the win all the time. Like, oh, if I just forgive, then, everything will be hunky dory and then my life will look great. No. this life, this world is illusory. It's just a tool. It's just a dream to demonstrate things to us, to demonstrate which teacher we're choosing in each moment. So when we start to take those roots out of the ego's garden, out of the ego's ground where the ego is trying to grow those roots, when we start pulling those out and putting our roots in God, we can and will experience something that feels like instability, something that feels like a loss of equilibrium for a little while. And it's just because we are reacclimating. We forgot who we really were. So as we are releasing ourselves from the ego's false beliefs, it's definitely unsettling and threatening to our ego, right? The ego starts to freak out and do everything it can to undermine the work that you've been doing. I have experienced this in my life many times and very drastically. Oh my gosh, my cat is being so cute. There she is, very satisfied with herself now that she's got mud paw prints all over my book. So I was saying that I have experienced this many times in my life, and I'm very much experiencing it now. You know, there was a video that I made a couple of years ago called Healing from Trauma with ACIM, and I am still very much experiencing much of that trauma. And it's because for the past, I mean, I've been practicing the Course for many years, but for the past few years, things have been happening in my life where I have been forced to exit my ego's interpretation because it was so upsetting, so devastating, so traumatizing that I had no choice but to go to God. I had no choice but to release more and more of my belief in the ego illusory world and find comfort and truth and love in the peace of God, from the peace of God. So as I have been pulling up those roots out of my ego world more and more and more, there have been many things in my life that have felt very unstable, and the equilibrium of my life has massively changed. But ultimately for the better. It's been very scary as my ego self has been releasing all the things that I once depended upon, where I had put my roots in the ego world. And so, of course, now that they've been pulled out, it can feel a little discombobulating. But it has forced me to plant my roots in God's source creation over and over and over again. And I am very grateful for that. As painful as it can seem sometimes to my ego self to be experiencing what feels like loss or abandonment or, things of that nature, I am extremely grateful at the same time that the appearance of that loss and the appearance of that abandonment caused me to go deeper and deeper into my truth, into my true God self. You know, I used to bounce back and forth between the two worlds all the time. I have been studying the Course for many years, as I was living my everyday life. And so I would sort of have my study time or even have my time in my mind as I was living my regular everyday life where I knew the truth, but I wasn't necessarily, speaking it out loud. It was all within my mind. And then there were also many times that I would pretend or allow myself to pretend to go into the ego world to make other people feel comfortable because I knew that they believe that this world is real. So I kept bouncing back and forth and basically pretending to other people within the ego illusion that their illusions were real because I thought it was like the nice thing to do, to not startle people or to make them feel comfortable. But now in hindsight, I realize that that wasn't loving to anyone because I was continuing to enforce their wrong beliefs. Not that I would ever have to say anything out loud to them, but by demonstrating, if I had demonstrated that I did not believe in their illusory world, it would have been kinder and more loving towards people versus me pretending that their illusory world is real. So now that I've been forced into a situation where I no longer do that, I no longer pretend for other people, it's definitely caused some changes within my 3D illusion for sure. And there are definitely many egos, many fractal egos that appear to be in my world that completely reject this behavior from me. They do not like it. It is very threatening to them and to their egos. But the more that has been reflected back to me, the more that I've known that I'm on the right track, even though it can appear within my illusory world that things have become more difficult. Okay? This is where the matrix comes in, and this is where our illusory 3D world that we made up with our one mistaken mind comes into play. As long as I'm worried about that and focusing on the illusion and focusing on these, pretend fractal egos that appear to be out there, and being worried about people pleasing them and how am I going to make them feel and things like that, as long as I'm doing that, I have put my eggs in the wrong basket. I am listening to the wrong teacher. And so this is a big lesson that I've had to learn in the past few years, is to not be bouncing back and forth in between the two realities just to appease other people. No, I am now firmly in my truth of who and what I know that I really am. I don't necessarily need to go around talking about it all the time. I do talk about it. It's not like I don't talk about it, but I don't need to be shouting it from the rooftops or anything. I just need to live my life and just be me. And I've noticed even the egos that were protesting quite loudly a few years ago have slowly calmed down as time has gone on. They still don't like it. It's still very disturbing to their world for me to stand in my truth to the extent that I do. But I can see within my illusory world that they appear to be slowly adjusting and constantly noticing that I'm doing something that's intriguing to them, something that, although it feels very threatening, they're also kind of interested in. So at this point, I completely surrender to God, Spirit, Source, Creation. I allow Source to use me as a vessel for whatever our one mind, our Christ consciousness mind wants us to know, to hear, to be expressed. Hi, Mimi. I'm happy to do that at this point. So many things were taken away from me or appeared to be taken away from me in my 3D illusory world, that I'm no longer bullied by it. I know how to focus on what's real, what's important. And when I forget, which I often do, because, I appear to be here just like everyone else, then I can remind myself again. That's the beauty of the Course. That's the beauty of the practice of forgiveness, which is simply remembering who and what we really are, which is God's source creation. Me and Mimi and anyone and everything else that appears to be in this illusory multiverse. We're all one. We're all love. And we are here to help one another wake up.